We are live to the 1 second on the hour. Give me a hand. Give me a hand. Everybody say, good host. Good host. You doing your thing. What's up, everybody? I didn't even promote this episode to start at 6 p.m. Central, but it did. And it started to the 1 second exactly on 6 p.m. And I'm very proud of myself. I get proud of myself for incredibly funny things. Now, one thing, one very peculiar thing that I would love to get into today is the way that we human beings, great human beings, pretend that we know more than we do. Okay, we're going to explore our way that we pretend in life. And, in my young adulthood, I was very philosophically minded. I was extremely philosophically minded. Now, that doesn't mean that I did the exact same thing that the most popular, most world renowned philosophers did. I didn't sit up and read philosophers, till all hours of the night and then spend my time speaking with my friends about it. But, just sort of internally in my own personal world, how I would analyze my friends and how I would analyze my interactions and myself, how I would reflect the way that I trained myself to think. All of these things were very philosophical in approach. And this led me, once YouTube became a pretty consistent addition to my day, to learn about someone that we're going to speak about. But I just remembered that I didn't do my housekeeping. So, first and foremost, please, good people, like the video, subscribe to the channels. Welcome back to the Inner Storyteller. It is your humble host, Soul Expression, and I'm very happy to be with you today. Today's show is entitled "The Show is Real While It's Running," a contemplation. By show, you will see that I mean like a theatrical play. Okay, the show, that the thing on the screen, the thing on the stage is real. It's real. It's real life. It's actual. While it's running, then once it's finished, then it's not real. um, One thing you should know about this channel in general is that you're here for real conversations. Okay, you're here because a part of you is either tired of or completely finished with some of the games that the shapers of society play with us, right? If you want to move past the fluff and get down to the nitty gritty of the only real problem that we face, we as the 99%, the only one problem, okay, underneath every other problem, then you're in the right place. Okay, if you want to stop circling the symptoms in your mind, looking for a solution, and finally put your hands on the root, if you want to rip off your blinders and see the world and society for what they actually are, not only what you are handed, not only what the screen may tell you that they are, but what they actually are. If you want to step out of your belief and into your knowing, and if you're tired of performing certainty about things that you were never given the real tools to examine, okay, if some part of you has always sensed that the story running your life was not written by you, and you're finally ready to find out what you would write and why, then you need to understand the inner storyteller. And you're in the right place for that. Keep in mind, good people, this show will end one day. This book will go out of print one day. This project of mine, the Inner Storyteller, like every project built by human hands, in time will one day return to the silence from whence it came. But the truth that my work points to shall remain eternal, because it existed before we gave names to parts of it, and it will remain until forever. So, with that being said, like I said, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know who you are in the comments. Let's get down to business here. First thing I want to do is actually share my screen, and I want to tell you a little bit about somebody named Alan Watts. Okay, rest in peace, Alan Watts. Alan Watts was a philosopher. He was a man whose work was not just about himself. Now, his work was aimed in the general direction of the improvement of the human condition, but not in a way that elevated any importance of people needing to believe what he shared in any way. He would just talk. And if you had ears to hear, to understand, on any level, what he was saying, then he welcomed your presence. His talks were very poetic. They were sophisticated. They were mature, calm, and esoteric in nature, which is to say beneath the surface, right? The hidden, the kind of information that you need to be initiated into. You need to get the fundamentals from somebody who's masterful at the information before you can really understand the esoteric aspect of a grand concept. And his talks are very esoteric, right? And I want to start today's episode by sharing a clip of Alan Watts. Now, I have my own topic that I'm going to talk about today, and we're going to discuss why Alan Watts' work is connected and related to it a little bit. But the focus today is not Alan Watts. It's actually the topic. And I want to share this clip with you just to simply demonstrate his style, right? His style of presenting. So, I didn't have time to find a clip that would perfectly reflect today's topic, but his work in general does a great amount. And you can find a lot of his work, at least a lot of his presentations and talks, right here on YouTube, with and without music in the background. Some people really hate the music in the background. So without further ado, let's play this clip.
Now, it's amazing what doesn't exist in the real world. For example, in the real world, there aren't any things, nor are there any events. That doesn't mean to say that the real world is a perfectly featureless blank. It means that it is a marvelous system of wiggles in which we descry things and events in the same way as we would project images on a Rorschach blot, or pick out particular groups of stars in the sky and call them constellations, as if they were separate groups of stars. Well, they're groups of stars in the mind's eye, in our system of concepts. They are not out there as constellations.
By the way, a Rorschach blot, if you don't know, is an ink blot on a piece of paper that has been folded, and then you open it up and it makes, this sort of symmetrical but random blob shape, of blackish blue ink. So when you see, sometimes you may see it if you've ever had a therapist, or if you've taken some sort of old school, I don't know if it was an IQ test, but it was an old school test of that tested your mind. These things, that was the main use for them, was in the study of psychology. So that's what a Rorschach blot was.
Already grouped in the sky. So in the same way, the difference between myself and all the rest of the universe is nothing more than an idea. It is not a real difference. And meditation is the way in which we come to feel our basic inseparability from the whole universe. And what that requires is that we shut up. That is to say, that we become interiorly silent and cease from the interminable chatter that goes on inside our skulls. Because you see, most of us think compulsively all the time.
Very correct. All right. So I just wanted to share a little bit of, let me see if I can, there we go. I'm starting to master this camera. Y'all got to see. So my last episode, I was on here with Kali Fontanilla. Shout out to Kali. And we were talking, and I did something like this, and it zoomed my camera in, and I had no idea what was going on. And my wife ended up telling me when we were watching the replay. But for the longest time, it would not zoom back out. And I was like, what's going on? Regardless. That is Alan Watts, right? That's a brief clip demonstrating his style of presenting. Very calm, very, intentionally slow, yet poetic, entertaining in its own way, and also focused on knowledge of self, right? Understanding yourself, becoming silent on the inside, ceasing the endless chatter in the mind. He says, to discover and or feel our inherent inseparability from the rest of the universe. What that demonstrates is that his conviction, okay, is that the universe is one, right? The all is one. This is the implication that he's setting forth in this clip. And what our world is built on is the universe is many. The world is many. Our experiences are many. And he is pointing to actually our experiences are one. Actually, the world is one. And we're going to get into these things, but it's a very important point because there's conviction on both sides. There is evidence to back the conclusion of both parties. People that say the all is many, people that say the all is one. Because, and of course we're all connected and things like that. And I would think most well-read people of the world, even young people, would lean towards the we are one if they were talking about it, but not the way they live. They live solely 100,000% only in the we are separate, we are many, we are separate from each other type of way. And I'm guilty of it. Everybody's guilty of it. It's extremely difficult to embody long-term the notion that the all is one, right? To actually live that and not participate in things that give the illusion that we are separate. Yet, the truth may be that we are one and that we never were separate. And the solutions to our problems may be more readily available after more people realize and teach their children, especially the latter, that we are one in the way that they live. So raising your children to live as if that is fact, not just to say that is fact and live as if it's completely false, which is what we do today. So I think that's a very, very interesting clip. Again, I didn't have time to find one that super duper supports my notes for today, but you're still going to get a kick out of all of this. And then hopefully you guys leave some comments and we can chat at the end, and let's see how this goes. So one of the reasons Alan Watts has stayed with me for over 10 years now is because he was so masterful at reminding us how little we actually know. That we really, really know with logic, proof, understanding, time, testing, we know it. How little things we actually know. Without really sliding too deeply into the trap of solipsism, right? That dead-end idea that nothing can truly be known because one's own mind is all that is sure to exist. That's false, and it's a cop-out. Okay, that's called solipsism, or that's one of the tenets of solipsism, that because one's own mind is the only thing that's sure to exist, nothing can actually be known to be true for all. Complete cop-out, in my humble opinion. And it is a cop-out. Now, Watts didn't go there, okay? But he did use stories, koans, philosophy, prose, I guess, to point at something that most people feel, but rarely can name or articulate properly. Which is this: we human beings always, without any exceptions at all, okay, we always include theater in our daily lives, in our enactments, in our schemes, in our expressions. We pretend to be things that we are not. We pretend to know things that we don't truly fully understand. And we perform, right? We perform with full conviction about things that we don't truly understand. We do it with religion, as defined in my work, right? Which is not only focused on the big three Western traditions, but also the religion of monetary value, the religion of government, the religion of fast food and convenience, the religion of technocracy, all of the religions. Okay. The religion that says raise your kids with the television, all of them, government school, okay, public school. So we pretend with religion in this way. We pretend with science in this way, that we know things that we really do not. We pretend with relationships. Okay. Married 10 years here. Okay. We pretend with relationships. We pretend with policy, obviously, policy, politics, bureaucracy. In the aggregate, we pretend to be more advanced and more consistent than we actually are. Right? We pretend to have gone further ahead in our study and in our experience in everything that we study and choose, as whether it's an occupation or choose as like a hobby, right? We develop a conviction and I know this field, and I know what is to be known about this field, and I know myself, and I know all of these things so very well, right? And I'm super consistent on what I conclude in this field and we pretend that we are more consistent and more advanced than we actually are. And it's something that we have to really, really, really understand if we're going to understand ourselves and how the inner storyteller works. We pretend to have a grasp on the universe, on the way that the world works, on God, on whatever, on this creation. Okay, we pretend to have a grasp on the created, despite pretty much all of the greatest minds in history, famous and non-famous, consistently writing and saying that they themselves keep arriving at more questions as opposed to more answers, right? They say that every door they close opens the door behind them on the other side. The honest minds of the past and of the present that are philosophically inclined, scientifically inclined, just great minds that have, spent the man hours and time and sacrifice, as well as like hardship, sweat, equity in mastering things, holistically. They all say this. They all admit that we know so little. We as an aggregate and them individually, the greatest minds, that we know that they know so little, that we know so little. But the dishonest ones, the ones who are dishonest and well accomplished, dishonest and well decorated, dishonest and holding a lot of accolades, holding a lot of power, holding a lot of influence. They built institutions on the foundation of the pretending. They built countries. They built continents. They built technologies, policies, all on that pretending. And that's where this understanding becomes a little bit darker. And we're going to take a look at it. Because if you're here, the inner storyteller, we look at the good, we look at the bad, we look at the ugly, and we look at the great. Now, how do I want to call them? The forces that run this place, the order giver class, okay? The families, the organizations, the darker cult leadership that use mind control methodology to create and maintain all of the economic, political, and religious architecture of the world. They didn't necessarily invent this pretending. And I'll call this pretending our theater. Okay? They didn't invent our theater. That happened organically. But one thing that Mark Passio always stresses is the biggest thing you have to really keep in mind about the dark occult, top of the food chain, main influences of the masses of the human population. They are Satanists, but they are not Hollywood version of Satanist. Okay, these are people that do not spend all of their time trying to summon things and do that. Now, that does go on, and it does go on in their circles, and they do tell groups of people to do this. But at the top of the top, these are mostly psychologists. These are people who wear a suit with a coat, and you would not be able to tell them from the next banker. Okay, you would not, unless you were extremely sensitive on aura or something, you would not notice them in the street, the top of the food chain. Okay, and unless you know the family and stuff like that. So in recognizing that the top of this class of people are regular people like you and I, in appearance and everything but behavior, basically, we have to realize that they existed the whole time that we existed. Okay, this the force that is beneath them, driving them toward, more and more power, more and more influence, and for some reason inflict more and more pain and cause more and more harm in the world as their MO. I don't know why they do that, but psychopathy is a hell of a drug, I guess. They didn't invent the theater. They found it already useful. They found that in studying the mind, that our theater that I'm describing, that just runs at all times. We're just always pretending. I'm doing it right now, and I can't not do it because it's how we express. But I'll get there. I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit. They found that this thing that I'm calling our theater already runs inside of us at all times, and they weaponized it. Okay, so I hope I really drove that point home clearly. They involve theater in every aspect of their attack on our minds, aimed at keeping us happy as slaves, or at least content as slaves, passive as their slaves, their subjects. And they use theater. And they make their theater optimized for the masses to wrongly identify with the stories they're telling, in such a way as to have us serve our masters. They have people pretend that humanity thinks certain things or agrees, right, with certain things, and that humanity loves and desires and wants particular things that it really doesn't care about at all, until we pick up and believe that everyone else thinks these things, cares about these things, loves these things, and desires these things. When we think everybody else does, when we think everybody else loves that song, when we think everybody else loves that food, when we think everybody else loves that monetary system, when we think everybody else loves those police, when we think everybody else loves those, I don't know, taxes, then there's something about that theater that unfortunately persuades us to think that we like it, desire it, and want it too. Okay, they manufacture the audience's reaction to the theater before the audience has a chance to form its own opinions. How? Well, through pretend, right? They perform their strength on repeat with their uniforms, with their weapons, with their way that they speak, with the way that they think when they're just revealing their own thoughts. They perform their strength, right? They perform our weakness. We also perform our weakness, but they perform our weakness in the way that they write policy, in the way that they write into existence governments, and out of existence the ability to form a government, lest you be immediately targeted and, it being for naught at the end of the day. They perform our weakness until we assume it to really be our own and run with it ourselves. And we perform our weakness in many ways, in our constant obedience, in our ungodly ability to look away from tragedy and ignore things that aren't necessarily hitting our front door, right? We can ignore Kensington, Philadelphia, for instance. We can ignore, how many people are still talking about, like the Epstein drop, for instance, or just any story, 9/11, any story where JFK, worth uncovering the whole truth about, and then having those culpable parties held accountable and stopping everything else, stopping the money system, at least here in the States, stopping everything except for, eating, drinking, sleeping, and sharing love and receiving love, and using the bathroom. Except for the basics, dropping everything until those who are held accountable, and we take a second look at what we've been doing for so long. Okay. And we just have the strongest ability to be indifferent to the suffering of others, even our own family, right? Many of our own family members were abused by these systems, and yet we can just completely remain obedient to it. In fact, it makes us want to be more obedient to it. It makes us shame our family members for either being rebellious or disregarding the system or whatever. And then the system got them. And now we're like, see, that's what you get. Now the system's going to abuse you over and over again for the rest of your whole life. I'm getting emotional. Pardon me. But we do, we get like that. And it's unfortunate. Now, what I need you to understand is that what I am referring to here is not metaphor. It's not merely a projection of what I think is going on, laid on top of some theatrics and some jokes and some smiles, as well as some yelling. It's not it, right? This is the current yet ancient human conditioning program, the program that's managed and run by this class of people, the order giver class of people, okay, with knowledge stemming back thousands of years on how the mind works, how to influence it, how symbols can be employed, how to lie effectively. All of these things they have access to all of the ancient knowledge of how the world works, and the families that came up with the knowledge kept passing down and hiding more and more of it. And so I say, the current yet ancient human conditioning program as the name of the program through which they condition the human family. And it works. It works because of something true about us that predates even them. Okay, that predates the modern version of them, which is this. And this, now, when I say this, don't get confused. Check it out. Theater is not merely what happens on a stage or behind a screen, because theater is the very means through which we express ourselves. We express ourselves in pretend. Now, it doesn't mean we only express lies and illusions. That's not it. What it means, because there can be things that are extremely true said in a play and on a screen, and the actor is acting, but in their remaining in character, they are still feeling and a lot of times hoping to get through to the audience the true message that their character was given in the script, right? So there can be truth in fiction, and there usually has to be truth in fiction for the fiction to become popular. There has to be a lot of truth in there, okay? So don't mix the fact that there could be a fiction with the idea that fiction means false or fiction means 100% false. That's not the case. The case is that theater is the very means through which we express ourselves. Okay? This is most important for those that have ears to hear, to understand. Theater is the operating system of human social reality. And because of that fact, theater must be re-examined by those who want to understand themselves to break free from the current human condition individually so that they can help others also break free, right? As much as close as we can get. Now, with that being, said and hopefully understood, of course, we have always been performers, right? I mean, just think about it. The younger you get, the more performative you are as far as emotion. The older you get, the more performative you are as far as your intellect. It's still a performance. Doesn't mean it's devoid of truth. Doesn't mean nothing can be known. It just means the way that we express ourselves is by embodying a character for a temporary time that's not really us. And if we really peel back the layers, it wouldn't be there. Okay. That's just how we do it. We put on the character of the moment, and then, moments later, it's not there anymore. It's not even reality. And we're going to get more into that in future episodes, but stay with me for now. We have always performed. We have always enacted our inner characters. The self that you present to the world at any given moment is a character. Not completely fake through and through, but shaped, right? Costumed, adapted to the stage that you find yourself on, adapted to the environment in which you develop who you are within, right? And Alan Watts knew this and spoke about this very profoundly. And it didn't disturb him, right? On the contrary, to him, it was freeing to understand that all we do is pretend. He said, he said in, it might have been his famous Joker talk, but it also might have been something else. He was talking about the nature of the human being, the nature of the personality. And he said, quote, "To be a real person is to be a genuine fake." And it's because he was talking about the etymological breakdown of the word person. You have per, which means a mask, and sona, sound, which so you have the mask through which sound comes through, which is the mask worn in theater. You have the mask, and you have the microphone, or what they used to have when the word person and the word personal were created, when those words were made. The masks, the mouth hole was cone shaped so that the sound would come out and it would amplify before electric microphones were invented and speakers and whatnot were invented. So the word person means a mask worn in theater. But you want to be a real person. You want to, that's a compliment, right? Which it kind of should be, because what they're trying to say is this is someone who is authentic and has integrity and means what they say and doesn't break their word. But regardless, it's very interesting and humbling when you really get to understand this knowledge, when you really put into practice what you're learning about yourself right now. Now, here we're going to put Alan Watts down a little bit because there's another layer to this that is important to me in my work, where what Watts didn't map out as precisely or as directly, pardon me, just because he wasn't operating with the same framework that I'm operating with, is that the stage can be and often is built by external forces. The stage in which you conduct your theater was built by someone else that you would not choose to do anything for you because they're bad, and you are likely not bad in your intention. Not going to be too nice to you. But you're not bad, right? As they say, the world is a stage. Tell them, big sis. Tell them. Also, I'm switching back and forth from my notes, so I might not see a comment for a second. Now, the costume, of course, can be handed to you before you're old enough and mature enough to refuse it. Meaning, it's very likely that over 99% of the 99% that don't have this information spoon-fed to them because they're a part of the elite group that is literally born to manage the rest of the world. That costume can be, kind of forced on you before you're old enough to refuse it. Meaning you can learn to wear your certain masks and pretend to be certain versions of yourself before you really, are given a chance to just be your natural self. Because the money system requires that, right? You have to grow up fast and develop parts of your intellect fast because you need to hurry up and be productive for the betterment of the people at the top of the food chain. Hurry up. Do work for me. Right? Struggle, suffer as a child so that I can get a new Mercedes next week, as they say. The script itself, okay? When I say script in my work, I mean what you give yourself to think about, what you give yourself to express. The script can be written by forces that need you to believe that you chose it, okay? That may need you to believe that you came up with these thoughts, these intentions, these desires, these reactions, and these worldviews, that they're yours, right? The product that they're pushing lends itself to the idea that it actually is coming from the public, that the public wants this. Big ass data center in Utah? The public wants that. What? Of course they want to all be spied on through AI that can recognize your face from 150 yards away. What? Of course. In a crowd full of millions of people, they can just pick you out of the crowd. Everybody wants that. Nobody wants privacy. What is privacy? Water? Psh, smarter. Water, smarter. Freedom? Schmeedum. Nobody wants these things, right? Right? Oh, man. The biggest lie in this grandest of theaters is that for the duration of the show, it's all real. Your expressions, their expressions, the order giver class's expressions, the medium, people who are trying to wake up but haven't figured it out yet, like myself. It's real. It's the totality of what we are, and really exists, right? The money, but the dollar, the value, the monetary value really exists. The authority, the divine command that you shall rule over them, them shall obey you. That whole idea, completely real, right? For the duration of the show. Then if we stop the show, then yeah, you call it fake. But for the duration of the show, it's real. That is the greatest lie of this grandest show, right? And do not separate yourself from those in the theater. Okay, we have the class of people that give the orders and the way bigger class of people that obey them, even if they do so begrudgingly. That puts them on the stage, us on the stage, myself included, no exceptions. All right, no offense either, but get as offended as you like, as Mark Passio likes to say. And it feels real. Okay, you get a letter from the IRS talking about, look, you got 6 weeks, so we're going to garnish your wages. It doesn't feel fake. You're not talking to the world about how money is a concept then, sometimes. And it doesn't just feel symbolically real, right? It doesn't just feel metaphorically real. It feels actually, completely, unquestionably real. And that's because the inner storyteller is the mechanism that makes us, the audience, as well as, the performing audience, forget that we are watching and participating in a performance. And once we forget that, we stop questioning the entire process. We stop questioning the stage. We stop questioning the script. We don't examine our behavior responsibly and with open minds anymore, right? We don't bring wisdom. We end up playing our part, serving our masters, teaching our children to do the same, and dying. Sometimes with the idea that we made a difference. No disrespect to anybody in your families, no disrespect to anybody in my own or myself. When no difference was made, or at least so little difference was made and so little people cared about the difference that was made, that when we got 10 steps worse in the wrong direction, it was like it was erased from the progress. And that sucks. It's not good. It's not good. That's the big paradox. You know what I'm saying? It's real and not real at the same time. That's the ticket, big sis. That's the ticket. By the way, if y'all are not following Affirm Life Daily here on YouTube, you need to be. Her name is Cynthia Mitchell. I've been on her show a bunch of times, a whole bunch of extremely smart, extremely freedom-oriented people have been on her show. You should definitely check her out. Tommy says, the system and the play is designed to arrest and suppress our kundalini, which, for those in the religious community, it just means our inherent connection to a boundless energy through our individual channel. Okay, your kundalini is just like a pathway for energy. Okay, kundalini. If the masses were educated and awake, all the chakras would open and the life force would be flowing freely, and we would not put up with this show. Thanks for the shout out. Of course. Now, before I just kind of freestyle I got to the end of my notes. Before I just kind of freestyle for the rest of this episode and then close out, I do want to give you guys some bars. Okay, I haven't rapped for y'all for like 6 or 7 episodes, and it's time to get some of this theater in the form of rap. And what I wrote, it's very short. I also bit myself. I bit off some of my lyrics from, I don't know, like 2014 or so. But check it out. It's a little rap for y'all. I've sacrificed since I started this. Double-sworded, rolling up on you like Spartacus. Too truthful. Satan don't know how to market this. Got me acting out of character to play my part in this. But I write the script. Miss me with the retarded shit. I'm starving just to serve the love that my heart is in. Bargaining. Please, Lord, for me. Spark the shift immediately. Regardless of the losses, because I can call it quits when I'm gone. School of food for thought starts again. So go ahead and get your starter kits. Don't try to spit the truth till after you gargle it and ponder it. Understand nuances and get up off your tush. Water this fertile soil full of seeds that I planted in your mind. Obedience is the only ingredient up in the line. They need it to enact the script. Watch and give it time. They'll give you all your orders, then they'll copyright your shine. They'll throw you in the slaughterhouse. They try to wipe your mind. Never do they ever want the public to resign. Put the game down, turn your TV off and grind. Fight the good fight against the rebels of the divine. You know what I'm saying? Let me text the brother that just called me real quick because he's flying out here tomorrow. Sorry about that. 1 second. I'm live on my show. Y'all say what's up to Malik. How y'all like them bars? You know what I'm saying? how you like the bars today? Let me know your favorite line. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're watching on replay, you can go listen to it again. But that's the truth. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we have to do. Fight the good fight. Strap your bootstraps up. Don't think that pull yourself up by your own bootstraps has anything to do with money. It doesn't. It has way more to do with your ability to self-actualize and to show yourself self-respect and to be in truth, embodying truth, and not just speaking truth and living a lie, living a script that you did not write, right? Reclaim authorship back into your world and back into your habit, and watch as the universe, you know, sort of bends a little bit in your favor every now and again. It ain't gonna do it every day. In fact, making a career out of self-actualization, you have a lot of days that, just like work, regular work that you go clock in at, you hate being there, okay? But the good days are very good. And with that being said, you know what I'm saying? Please remember that, love this comment. Thank you so very much. Please remember, if you are here, you are in for real conversations about natural law, religion, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the great, money, anarchy, culture, and how mankind is manipulated by forces that do not have our best interests at heart. But we are not bashing faith systems here. We are simply examining the psychological affects and effects of the stories that we have faith in, that we have the most stake in, and how those stories shape our society, right? And that examination sits right alongside an honest look, an honest respect of the current human condition, which I say is indeed slavery. Government is slavery. And the question that we have to always come back to is what can actually be improved with a proper understanding of the inner storyteller and how it is programmed. And if that makes you uneasy, okay, if that makes you mad, if that makes you too sad, or any type of negative feeling, trust and believe, although you are encouraged to stay and like the video 1,000 times, you are welcome to leave. You know what I'm saying? Let me go back to the comments and see if anybody else. Thank you, Tommy, by the way. Copyright your shine. They give you all the orders, then they copyright your shine. Big sis, don't let them do it. Don't let them do it. Thank you so much. Wow, the viewership just keeps going up. I'm up to 7 views. I'm saying 7 out loud, okay, because I want to come back to this video. And when I have, I don't know, 40,000 on live and be like, yo, I'm so excited for like 7 people to be on at once. No, I really appreciate you guys. Again, like the video, subscribe to the channels. If you like conversations like this, and even if you don't, just click the like button, click the subscribe button, and I'll see y'all. What's tomorrow? Saturday. I'll see y'all likely tomorrow, if not Monday, for the next one. Peace.